behind America's most wholesome family sitcom lurked secrets that would make even Alice's jaw drop. From dogs getting secretly replaced mid-episode to fake windows fooling viewers for decades, the Brady Bunch's squeaky-clean facade hid a world of bizarre production mishaps, tragic accidents, and shocking behind-the-scenes drama that the networks desperately tried to keep under wraps. Here are the 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Brady Bunch 1969. Fact 1. The family dog was killed and secretly replaced mid-episode. The Brady family's beloved dog Tiger met a tragic end that producers desperately tried to hide from viewers, leading to one of television's most heartbreaking cover-ups. During the filming of the 5th episode titled Ka-Choo in 1969, the original Tiger was struck and killed by a delivery truck while on the Paramount Studios lot with his trainer. According to series creator Sherwood Schwartz, the trainer didn't want to lose his lucrative job on the show, so he made a shocking decision that would forever change television history. Without telling anyone about Tiger's death, the trainer rushed to the local animal pound and found a look-alike dog to finish filming the episode. The replacement looked nearly identical to the original Tiger, but there was one major problem. This new dog had received absolutely no training for television work. When filming resumed, Schwartz and the crew quickly realized something was very wrong. The moment the director called action, the untrained replacement Tiger would immediately bolt off the set, leaving young Mike Lookinland, who played Bobby Brady, standing alone in the scene. After multiple failed attempts to get the replacement dog to stay in position, Schwartz came up with a desperate solution that he later described to the Television Academy Foundation. "We solved the problem by nailing Tiger to the floor," Schwartz explained, though he was quick to clarify that they actually nailed the dog's collar down to prevent him from running away. This allowed them to complete the emotional scene where the Brady boys say their goodbyes to Tiger, thinking he was being sent away due to Jan's apparent allergies. The replacement Tiger appeared in several more episodes throughout the first and second seasons, but his unpredictable behavior on set eventually became too much trouble. By the middle of season 2, Tiger quietly disappeared from the show entirely, with no explanation given to viewers about what happened to the family pet. Ironically, Tiger's doghouse remained visible in the backyard for the rest of the series, serving as a constant reminder of the beloved character who was gone forever. Fact 2. The house had a completely fake second-story window. The famous Brady house that millions of viewers watched every week was built on a lie that fooled audiences for over 5 decades. The iconic split-level home located on Dilling Street in Studio City, California, was actually a single-story house, but producers needed it to match the elaborate 2-story interior sets that had already been constructed at Paramount Studios. To solve this major architectural problem, they came up with a brilliantly simple deception that nobody questioned. The production team physically attached a completely fake window to the front of the real house, creating the illusion that there was a second floor where the boys' bedrooms would be located. This artificial window was nothing more than a prop designed to fool television cameras and match the interior layout that viewers saw during indoor scenes. The real house underneath was just a modest split-level dwelling that looked nothing like the spacious family home that appeared on screen every week. Creator Sherwood Schwartz explained to the Los Angeles Times that they chose this particular house because it looked like the kind of place where an architect would actually live, fitting perfectly with Mike Brady's character. The house needed to strike the right balance between being too fancy and too ordinary, representing a comfortable middle-class family home. However, by the time location scouts found this perfect exterior, the interior sets depicting a grand 2-story layout had already been built and were too expensive to change. This deception worked so well that even decades later, when the house was renovated for HGTV's A Very Brady Renovation in 2019, the cast members were shocked to discover the truth. Susan Olsen, who played Cindy Brady, admitted that when she first saw the real house, she thought to herself that there was no way it could be the Brady home because it was clearly only 1 story. The fake window remained part of the house's facade for years, and during the HGTV renovation, they actually installed a real functioning window where the original fake one had been placed for the show. Fact 3. Gene Hackman was almost cast as Mike Brady. One of Hollywood's greatest actors came incredibly close to becoming America's most beloved television dad. But network executives made a decision that changed entertainment history forever. Gene Hackman was creator Sherwood Schwartz's first choice to play Mike Brady, the wise and patient patriarch of the blended Brady family. However, ABC television executives took one look at the relatively unknown Broadway actor and immediately rejected the idea, insisting they needed someone with more established television experience for such an important role. At the time of casting in 1969, Hackman had only appeared in small guest roles on shows like I Spy, the FBI, and Route 66, making him virtually invisible to television audiences. Network executives were particularly concerned about his low TVQ rating, which was a statistical measurement based on surveys asking viewers how much they like certain television actors. Paramount Studios wouldn't even allow Hackman to audition for the role because his TVQ score was so poor, despite Schwartz's strong belief that he would be perfect for the part. Instead of Hackman, the network chose Robert Reed, who had already gained recognition from his starring role in the legal drama The Defenders, and was already under contract with Paramount Studios. Reed brought the name recognition and television experience that executives demanded, even though Schwartz had serious reservations about this choice from the very beginning. The irony of this casting decision became apparent just a few years later when Hackman won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1972 for his powerful performance as Detective Jimmy Popeye Doyle in French Connection. By that time, The Brady Bunch was in its third season, and Hackman had become one of the most respected actors in Hollywood. Schwartz later lamented this missed opportunity, noting that unknown Gene Hackman with no TVQ has been a major star ever since. The decision to pass on Hackman ultimately worked out well for everyone involved, as it allowed him to pursue the dramatic roles that would define his legendary career, while Robert Reed became forever associated with the iconic Mike Brady character. Fact 4. The show was inspired by a 4-line newspaper statistic. One of television's most beloved family sitcoms was born from the most unlikely source imaginable, a tiny newspaper filler piece that most readers probably skipped right over. Creator Sherwood Schwartz was reading the Los Angeles Times in 1965 when he came across a brief 4-line statistic buried somewhere in the paper that would change his life forever. The small item reported that 31% of all marriages that year involved people who had children from previous relationships, a figure that seemed almost insignificant at the time. While most people would have read this statistic and forgotten about it immediately, Schwartz saw something much bigger in those simple numbers. He later explained that this brief mention indicated a remarkable sociological change happening across America, as blended families were becoming increasingly common but were completely invisible on television. The idea struck him like lightning. Here was an entirely unexplored family dynamic that could make for compelling television, yet no one in Hollywood was paying attention to this growing trend. Schwartz has often said that it's very rare for a writer to know exactly where his ideas come from, but in the case of The Brady Bunch, he could trace the inspiration back to that single moment of reading the newspaper. The statistic made him realize that millions of American families were dealing with the challenges of combining households, managing relationships between step-siblings, and creating new family traditions, yet television was still showing only traditional nuclear families. This tiny piece of demographic data became the foundation for what would eventually become one of the most enduring family shows in television history. Schwartz took that simple statistic about marriage trends and transformed it into the story of Mike Brady, a widowed architect with 3 sons, marrying Carol Martin, a woman with 3 daughters of her own. The resulting show would run for 5 seasons and continue in syndication for decades. All because one television producer was paying attention to a forgettable newspaper statistic that everyone else ignored. Fact 5. Robert Reed hated the show so much he was written out of the finale. The beloved father figure of the Brady Bunch despised his own show with such intensity that he ultimately boycotted the series finale, creating one of television's most awkward behind-the-scenes conflicts. Robert Reed, a classically trained Shakespearean actor who had earned respect for his dramatic work on The Defenders, felt trapped in what he considered a completely ridiculous sitcom that was beneath his artistic abilities. Throughout the show's 5-year run, Reed constantly clashed with creator Sherwood Schwartz over what he saw as childish storylines and silly visual gags that had no place in quality television. Reed's frustration reached a breaking point during the filming of the final episode titled The Hair-Brained Scheme, which centered around Bobby and Greg selling a hair tonic that accidentally turns their hair orange. The accomplished actor found this plot so absurd and embarrassing that he flat-out refused to participate in filming, despite it being the series finale where his character should have been prominently featured. Instead of Mike Brady being present for his son Greg's high school graduation, the script had to be hastily rewritten to explain that the family patriarch was simply out of town on business. Schwartz later revealed that Reed would regularly send him detailed memos criticizing the scripts and suggesting changes that would make the show more sophisticated and realistic. The producer described Reed as someone who wound up on a show that he didn't want to do in the first place, and the situation became increasingly difficult as Reed grew more vocal about his displeasure with the material. Despite his personal feelings about the show, Reed remained professional with his young co-stars and was known to be protective and caring toward the child actors on set. The conflict became so severe that if the Brady Bunch had been renewed for a 6th season, Reed would have been replaced entirely rather than continue the ongoing battle with producers. His absence from the finale created an unfortunate end to what should have been a celebration of the show's successful run, leaving viewers to wonder why the family's father figure was missing during such an important milestone. Fact 6. Cindy's lisp was real and caused bullying at school. The adorable speech impediment that made Cindy Brady so endearing to television audiences was completely genuine, but it turned Susan Olsen's real-life school experience into a nightmare of constant teasing and bullying. Unlike many child actors who had to learn special skills or fake certain characteristics for their roles, Olsen's distinctive lisp was a natural speech pattern that she had struggled with throughout her entire childhood. The show's producers loved this authentic quality because it made the youngest Brady daughter seem even more innocent and childlike to viewers. However, what worked perfectly for television created serious problems for Olsen in her everyday life, especially when the show featured episodes that specifically highlighted Cindy's speech issues. During the 2nd season, the Brady Bunch aired an episode called A Fistful of Reasons that focused heavily on Cindy's lisp and showed her being bullied by other children because of the way she talked. Olsen later revealed that this particular episode gave her real-life classmates even more ammunition to tease her with, as they now had specific examples from television to copy when they wanted to make fun of her. Children at Olsen's school couldn't understand the difference between an actress playing a character and the real person behind the role, so they treated her exactly like the sometimes annoying, tattletale version of Cindy Brady they saw on their television screens every week. The constant bullying became so difficult that Olsen worked with multiple speech therapists throughout her childhood and teenage years, desperately trying to correct the impediment that was making her life miserable both on and off screen. Olsen has explained that her tongue was actually too big for her mouth, which required extensive oral surgery as a child and continued speech therapy until she was 19 years old. She eventually attended a special clinic at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts to work on her pronunciation, though she jokingly admitted that part of her motivation for going was because there was an attractive young man also attending the same clinic. Fact 7. The kids had to pay to park at their own workplace. The child stars of The Brady Bunch faced the humiliating reality of having to pay parking fees just to show up for work at their own television show, revealing how poorly they were treated financially, despite being part of a hit series. Susan Olsen, who played the youngest Brady daughter Cindy, later revealed that the young actors were not only paid very modest salaries compared to what people might expect from television stars, but they also had to deal with the added insult of paying to park their cars at the Paramount Studios lot where they filmed every day. This parking fee situation highlights just how different the entertainment industry was in the 1970s, when child labor laws and union protections for young performers were much weaker than they are today. The Brady kids were essentially being treated like any other studio employees rather than the stars of a popular show that was generating significant profits for the network and production company. While adult actors with more established careers and better representation might have been able to negotiate perks like free parking as part of their contracts, the children and their families apparently lacked the bargaining power to secure such basic workplace benefits. The financial struggles didn't end with parking fees, as Olsen has also mentioned that the cast members were not paid particularly well throughout the show's 5-year run from 1969 to 1974. This was especially problematic for the child actors, whose earnings needed to support not just themselves, but often help their families as well. The irony of having to pay to park at the very studio where they were creating one of television's most beloved family shows adds an almost cruel twist to their already modest compensation. ABC Television Network's policy of charging everyone for parking, regardless of their role in producing content for the studio, demonstrates the rigid corporate structure that treated even their own stars as just another expense to be managed rather than valuable assets to be nurtured and protected. Fact 8. The backyard was actually padded carpet, not grass. The lush green lawn that viewers saw in the Brady family's backyard was nothing more than an elaborate safety trick designed to protect the child actors during filming. Instead of real grass or even artificial turf, the entire outdoor area was covered with thick padded felt carpet that provided a soft landing surface whenever the young performers needed to fall down, run around, or engage in physical activities during outdoor scenes. This carpeted surface was so convincing on camera that most viewers never suspected they were looking at anything other than a perfectly manicured suburban lawn. The fake grass setup became particularly important during episodes that featured the Brady kids playing sports, having picnics, or engaging in other backyard activities that might result in tumbles or accidents. The safety-conscious production team knew that real grass could be uneven and potentially dangerous for children who were performing scripted actions rather than playing naturally, so the padded carpet gave them peace of mind while still maintaining the illusion of a typical family backyard. This artificial lawn became even more useful when a studio lighting accident created an unexpected problem that required creative problem-solving. During one day of filming, a heavy studio light fell and burned a noticeable hole right through the fake grass carpeting, creating a dark spot that would have been clearly visible to television cameras. Rather than replace the entire expensive carpeted surface, the production team came up with a clever solution that served multiple purposes. They strategically placed Tiger's doghouse directly over the burned area, effectively hiding the damage while also creating a permanent set piece that added authenticity to the backyard scenes. This practical decision meant that Tiger's doghouse remained visible in the Brady backyard for the rest of the series, even long after the family dog had disappeared from the storylines. Barry Williams, who played Greg Brady, later confirmed that he and Susan Olsen would sometimes hide inside that same doghouse between takes, using it as a private space away from the adult crew members and directors. Fact 9. Barry Williams had a teenage crush on his TV mom. The oldest Brady son developed genuine romantic feelings for his television mother that went far beyond typical on-screen chemistry, creating one of the most awkward behind-the-scenes situations in sitcom history. Barry Williams, who was just 15 years old when the show began, found himself completely smitten with Florence Henderson, the actress who played his stepmother, Carol Brady. Despite the 20-year age difference between them, Williams couldn't help but develop what he later described as intense puppy love feelings for the woman who was supposed to be his maternal figure on the show. Williams later wrote about his crush in his memoir, Growing Up Brady, where he clarified that his feelings weren't sexual in nature, but rather a deep desire to spend time with Henderson and get to know her better as a person. He was fascinated by her intelligence, her warmth, and her genuine care for all the young actors on the set, which made his teenage infatuation feel even more confusing and overwhelming. The situation became particularly difficult for Williams because he had to act natural during family scenes while dealing with these very real romantic feelings. Henderson, who was a seasoned professional and experienced mother in real life, handled the situation with remarkable grace and understanding. Rather than embarrassing the young actor or making the situation uncomfortable for everyone involved, she actually agreed to go out to dinner with Williams one evening, treating it as a sweet gesture toward a confused teenager rather than anything inappropriate. During this dinner, Henderson gently but firmly established boundaries while still being kind and respectful toward Williams's feelings. The dinner date allowed Williams to spend the quality time with Henderson that he had been craving, but it also helped him understand that their relationship needed to remain strictly professional and familial. Henderson's mature handling of this delicate situation prevented what could have been a much more awkward and potentially damaging experience for the young actor, and Williams has always spoken about her with tremendous respect and gratitude for how she managed his teenage crush. Fact 10. The original title was Mine and Yours. The iconic name, The Brady Bunch, that became synonymous with wholesome family television almost never existed, as creator Sherwood Schwartz originally pitched his groundbreaking blended family concept under the completely different title, Mine and Yours. This original name was meant to capture the essence of two separate families coming together, with Mike Brady bringing his 3 sons and Carol Martin contributing her 3 daughters to create one large household. The title reflected the central premise that these children would need to learn to share everything from bedrooms to parents while figuring out how to become a real family. When Schwartz first began shopping his pilot script around to the major television studios in the late 1960s, the show was called Mine and Yours throughout the initial development process. However, network executives and studio heads wanted significant changes made to the concept before they would consider putting it on the air, which led to a lengthy period of revisions and modifications that stretched over several months. During this extended development phase, the title evolved along with other aspects of the show, as Schwartz worked to address the concerns and suggestions from various network executives. The show went through another name change during this revision period, becoming The Bradley Brood for a time as producers experimented with different ways to market the concept to television audiences. This intermediate title maintained the alliterative quality that would eventually make The Brady Bunch so memorable, while the word brood emphasized the large number of children who would be the focus of most storylines. The Bradley family name was also tested during this phase, though it was ultimately changed to Brady before the show reached the airwaves. By the time all the revisions were completed, and the show was finally picked up by ABC for the 1969 television season, the title had settled into its final form as The Brady Bunch. This name perfectly captured both the alliterative appeal that made it easy to remember and the warm, close-knit feeling that the show wanted to convey about this newly formed blended family. Fact 11. Cast members secretly dated each other behind the scenes. The Brady siblings may have been playing family members on television, but behind the cameras, several of the young actors developed real romantic relationships that created some genuinely awkward moments during filming. Barry Williams, who played the oldest son Greg Brady, and Maureen McCormick, who portrayed the eldest daughter Marcia Brady, began dating each other while the show was in production, despite their characters being step-siblings in the same household. This secret romance between the two teenage actors added an unexpected layer of complexity to their on-screen family dynamics. The most dramatic moment of their real-life relationship occurred during the filming of the famous Hawaii episodes in the show's fourth season. Williams and McCormick managed to sneak away from the rest of the cast and crew for a romantic moonlit walk on the beach, where they shared what McCormick later described as a passionate kiss under the stars. The intensity of their real feelings for each other became so obvious that it actually affected their professional work the next day, when they had to film scenes together as brother and sister. Creator Sherwood Schwartz later confirmed in his book that he could clearly see the romantic tension between Williams and McCormick during filming, particularly when they were supposed to be acting as siblings. He wrote that when the two teenagers sat down on a bed together during one scene, their interaction became romantic and even steamy, completely contradicting the innocent family relationship their characters were supposed to have. Schwartz realized he was accidentally capturing genuine teenage lust on film rather than the wholesome sibling bond the script required. McCormick later wrote about this relationship in her memoir, admitting that she felt conflicted about kissing someone who was supposed to be her television brother. She remembered thinking to herself during their romantic moments that she was kissing her brother and wondering what she was doing, even though she knew they weren't actually related. This behind-the-scenes romance was just one example of how the young actors often developed crushes on each other, since they spent so much time together and had limited contact with other teenagers their age. Fact 12. Mike Lukenland had to dye his hair dark for every episode. The youngest Brady boy endured a painful beauty routine that would make even the most dedicated actors cringe, all because his natural hair color didn't match his television family. Mike Lukenland, who played Bobby Brady throughout the show's 5-year run, was born with beautiful strawberry blonde hair that looked nothing like the dark brown locks of his supposed father Mike Brady and older brothers Greg and Peter. To maintain the illusion that all the Brady boys were biological siblings who shared similar physical traits, Lukenland had to undergo a grueling hair dyeing process before filming each and every episode. This constant chemical treatment took a serious toll on the young actor's hair and scalp, creating health problems that extended far beyond simple cosmetic concerns. The harsh hair dyes used in the 1970s were much more damaging than modern formulations, and the repeated applications required to keep Lukenland's hair consistently dark caused significant chemical burns and irritation to his sensitive scalp. The situation became so severe that Lukenland actually lost patches of hair due to the damage caused by the frequent dyeing sessions, creating bald spots that had to be carefully concealed with strategic camera angles and styling. Creator Sherwood Schwartz was extremely particular about maintaining visual consistency within the Brady family, believing that viewers needed to see clear physical resemblances between family members to make the blended family concept believable. He specifically wanted the girls to have blonde hair like their mother Carol, played by Florence Henderson, while the boys needed to have dark hair that matched their father Mike, portrayed by Robert Reed. This casting decision meant that while the three actresses playing the Brady daughters could keep their natural or easily achievable blonde hair, Lukenland was stuck with a punishing routine that damaged his health. The irony of this situation was that Lukenland's natural strawberry blonde color would have been perfectly acceptable for a child in the early 1970s, but the show's emphasis on creating artificial family resemblances forced him to endure unnecessary suffering. The young actor never complained publicly about this treatment during the show's original run, demonstrating remarkable professionalism despite the physical discomfort he experienced week after week. Fact 13. The same house exterior shots were recycled for 5 years. The iconic Brady house that appeared in every episode of the series was actually filmed only once. with those same exterior shots being reused for the entire 5-year run of the show from 1969 to 1974. Production crews went to the Studio City location and filmed multiple establishing shots of the house from different angles and at various times of day before the Brady Bunch ever premiered on television. These pre-recorded sequences were then stored in the studio archives and pulled out whenever an episode needed an exterior view of the Brady family home. This recycling system explains why observant viewers might notice that the Brady house and its surrounding yard never seemed to change or age throughout the show's long run. The trees, bushes, and landscaping remained exactly the same size and shape in every episode because they were literally the same footage being shown over and over again. Even the cars parked on the street and the shadows cast by nearby buildings stayed frozen in time, creating an almost surreal consistency that defied the natural passage of seasons and years. The production team created the illusion of day and night scenes by simply darkening the same daytime footage whenever they needed to show the house during evening hours. This cost-saving technique was so effective that most viewers never noticed they were seeing artificially darkened daylight shots rather than genuine nighttime photography. The shadow patterns and lighting angles remained identical between the supposed day and night versions. But the simple darkening filter was enough to convince audiences they were seeing the house at different times. This economical approach to exterior shots was typical of television production budgets in the early 1970s, when studios were constantly looking for ways to reduce costs without sacrificing the visual quality that viewers expected. The recycled footage system worked so well for The Brady Bunch that it became a standard practice for many other sitcoms of the era, allowing production companies to invest their limited budgets in more elaborate interior sets and storylines rather than expensive location shooting. Fact 14. Carol's first husband's fate was never explained due to network censorship. One of television's most enduring mysteries was created not by clever writing, but by network censorship that forced the show to avoid addressing what happened to Carol Brady's first husband. Creator Sherwood Schwartz originally intended for Carol to be a divorced woman who had custody of her 3 daughters, which would have made perfect sense for the show's premise about blended families becoming more common in American society. However, ABC television executives were deeply uncomfortable with the idea of featuring a divorced woman as the mother figure in a family sitcom, believing that divorce was still too controversial and morally questionable for mainstream television audiences in 1969. The network's conservative stance on marriage created a significant problem for the show's writers, who were caught between Schwartz's original vision and ABC's strict content guidelines. While the executives preferred the idea of Carol being a widow rather than a divorcee, this alternative also presented complications that the network wanted to avoid. Showing Carol as a widow would have required the writers to address potentially difficult topics like death, grief, and how the children had coped with losing their father, subjects that ABC felt were too heavy for a light-hearted family comedy. Rather than choose between these two potentially problematic backstories, the network and production team decided on an unusual compromise that would haunt the series throughout its entire run. They simply never explained what happened to Carol's first husband, leaving viewers to wonder whether he had died, disappeared, or been divorced, while the show pretended that this glaring plot hole didn't exist. This decision meant that Carol's 3 daughters apparently had no memory of or connection to their biological father, which created some awkward moments when the girls interacted with Mike Brady, as if he had always been their only parent. The mysterious absence of Carol's first husband became even more puzzling when the show depicted Mike Brady legally adopting Carol's daughters, a process that would normally require either the biological father's consent or proof of his death. This adoption storyline only highlighted the strange decision to keep the father's fate completely unexplained, creating a family situation that made little sense to viewers who thought about it too carefully. Fact 15. Tiger's replacement dog had to be fired for bad acting. The second dog to play Tiger proved to be such a terrible actor that he became the first and only cast member in Brady Bunch history to be fired for poor performance. After the original Tiger was tragically killed, the replacement dog that was hastily found at the local animal pound had absolutely no training for television work and couldn't follow even the most basic commands needed for filming. While the look-alike dog was physically similar enough to fool viewers, his complete lack of professional training made him impossible to work with during actual production. The untrained replacement Tiger would consistently ignore his trainer's instructions, wander off the set in the middle of scenes, and refuse to stay in position for even the simplest shots. During one particularly frustrating filming session, the dog was supposed to lie quietly on the floor in the Brady boys' bedroom, but instead, he kept getting up and walking around, completely ruining multiple takes and costing the production valuable time and money. The situation became so difficult that crew members had to physically restrain the dog by nailing his collar to the floor, which was both impractical and potentially dangerous for future scenes. Creator Sherwood Schwartz and the production team tried repeatedly to make the arrangement work, bringing the replacement Tiger back for several more episodes throughout the first and second seasons. However, each appearance became more problematic than the last, as the dog showed no signs of improvement, despite the trainer's efforts to teach him basic television skills. The unpredictable behavior made it nearly impossible to include Tiger in any meaningful storylines, since the writers could never be sure whether the dog would actually cooperate during filming. By the middle of the second season, the producers finally admitted defeat and quietly removed Tiger from all future episodes, without offering any explanation to viewers about where the family pet had gone. The Brady family simply stopped mentioning their dog entirely, as if Tiger had never existed in the first place. Ironically, Tiger's doghouse remained visible in the backyard set for the rest of the series, serving as a permanent reminder of the beloved character who had been lost due to circumstances completely beyond anyone's control.